All right, this is Mrs. Naslin, and today we'll be doing Unit 5, Lesson 15, Multiplication with Hundreds. Our learning targets for today are, I can use an area model to represent multiplication of hundreds, and I can explore and use different methods to multiply hundreds. All right, first we're going to look at that area model. Take a look at this. First off, it says how many hundreds are represented in each column of the model. So if we look at our column here, our problem that we're trying to figure out is 300 times 7. What they've done is they've made a column for each 100. So since there's 300 that we're multiplying, there's 3 100 columns. And then over here, they've made a row for each of the 7. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So basically what they want you to think about is if I did 7 times 100, I would get 700. And if I did 7 times 100 again, I'd get 700. And 7 times 100, I would get 700. And the idea is if I add all of these together, if I go 700 plus 700 plus 700, I'm going to get that 2,100. Okay? If we go on to the next question here, it says, how does knowing that 7 times 3 equals 21 help you find 7 times 300? Well, I'm going to think about what we talked about with the tens. If I do 7 times 3, I know that's 21, and all I have to do is count my zeros and add them on. So there's 2 zeros, I add them on, I get 2,100. Okay, just like what we did with the tens, it works the same with the hundreds. So let's practice that a little bit. If I do this when I first look at my actual digits that aren't zeros, 9 times 6 is 54. And then I count my additional zeros there, and I've got 1, 2. I add those on. So I end up with 5,400. How about something like this? I look at my digits. I've got 49 and 3, and I'm going to do 49 times 3. We'll do a 2-digit by 1-digit multiplication problem. 49 times 3. Nine times 3 is 27. And my 2. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14. I'm not done yet. Got to count my zeros, 1, 2, and add them on. So I end up with 14,700. All right, let's let you go ahead and try. Why don't you work on figuring out 7 times 500? All right, so the first thing I would do is 7 times 5, which is 35. And then I count my zeros, and I've got 1, 2 zeros, so I add those on. And I end up with 3,500. All right, why don't you give it a shot with this one? 83 times 200. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out which digits I'm going to multiply first. I'm going to do 83 times 2. All right, 3 times 2 is 6. And 8 times 2 is 16. And I count my additional zeros. I've got 2 zeros, and I add those on. So I end up with 16,600. All right, now, what if they just weren't zeros? If it wasn't 100 or 200, but we actually have real numbers? Well, it works very similar to 2-digit by 1-digit multiplication. So let's do this one. 5 times 3 is 15. I'm just going to write it at my ones. I multiply my ones. I carry it. Then I do my tens. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. I add that number I carried on. And then I do my thousands. My hundreds. Said hundreds there, but I meant tens. 3 times 1 is 3. I end up with 375. All right, let's try this one. We'll do our ones first. 9 times 2 is 18. I carry my 1. Now I'm going to multiply my tens. 7 times 2 is 14. plus 1 is 15. And if you have to carry, you would do it just the way you did it before. You'd carry it over to the hundreds column there. And now I'm going to multiply my 100. 2 times 2 is 4, plus my 1 is 5. So I end up with 558. All right, why don't you go ahead and give it a shot? Why don't you try to do 132 times 4? All right, let's see how you did. 4 times 2 is 8. I have nothing to carry there. One of my tens. 4 times 3 is 12, so I do have something to carry. So I'm going to put my 2 here, carry my 1. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So I end up with 528. All right, if you got it right, great job. Let's try one more. 345 times 2. All right, let's see how you did. 5 times 2 is 10. 0. I'm going to carry my 1 to the tens place. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And 3 times 2 is 6. So I end up with 690. All right, so now you know how to do multiplication to the hundreds. Great work.